Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Izzy with the Realty Board and I'm interviewing John Aponte with People's Trust Realty. And today we're going to be answering the top most asked questions about first time home buyers. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
No, this is
You
the
get to hear.
most asked question.
Okay.
Are first time home buyers screwed?
Whoa, that's a good question. No, they're not actually. No, not at all.
Elaborate on that.
There's so many opportunities for the first-time home buyer. When they ask that question, are they screwed? No, they're not. Okay, so there's different programs that they can qualify for, and pretty much they have a huge benefit in today's market. So I don't think they're screwed at all. I think this would be a great time for them to go ahead and buy their first starter home. Depending on where you're at and what you want as far as a home and your location, it's going to vary. But I don't believe they're screwed at all.
Well, I'm sure that's a huge relief for a lot of
Yes.
people. Now, what do first time home buyers need to know?
They need to know a lot, actually. When they're looking at a house, a lot of people look, it's like eye candy. You could buy a nice piece of candy, but it can taste like crap, So, my advice to the first time home buyers is, first get yourself with a qualified agent. Make sure they know what they're selling you. Because there's certain things that you should look for in an agent, their knowledge of their industry. The first time home buyer really needs to be very knowledgeable in what they buy. Because of my best advice to give you is make sure you hook up with a qualified agent who knows ins and outs, because the last thing you want to do is waste your money on inspections, and the property, your agent should know if there's going to be an issue with the property before you do your inspections. Not to say that they're an inspector or really, but they should actually know a lot of the home before you go ahead and put an offer in on it. So again, making sure you get that qualified agent, make sure they know that you're not going to waste your time, waste your money. Sometimes, I have these agents that come into a property and they'll go ahead and look at it and say, yeah, they'll submit the offer. Maybe they'll work on it. Maybe they won't. Then the buyer's out another $450 or whatever the inspection fee is, plus the appraisal. Then forget it if they get to the survey portion and the property doesn't qualify. You can't get insurance. Insurance is a big thing nowadays. They've moved the requirements for a roof age. So you got to make sure that you got to check those things out. So how old's your roof? If your roof is only 2 years old and you're going to show that first time homeowner buyer a property that the roof is has 2 years life left, you're basically going in, they're going to waste their money and they're going to be upset at the end of the day. So you definitely want to pick that qualified agent to go ahead and walk you through those properties. So it's a very challenging for the first-time home buyer in that aspect, because there's a lot of agents out here that really should know a little bit more before they go ahead and start, showing or having that first-time home buyer put an offer in on a property that they're going to dump thousands into as soon as they close. I would look out for that client, especially a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, that's a very great piece of information. Now, can someone buy a house with low income?
Yes, it's just basically, yes and no, depending on where they're at and their guidelines. FHA has definitely guidelines that they need to meet. I would definitely sit down with a qualified loan officer to go ahead and go through those options. So we work with quite a few qualified loan officers that we know will give you the right information the first time.
That's really good
Yeah.
to know. Is it better to build or buy a house?
For a first-time home buyer, I'd probably say just to buy a house. Sometimes you can get a new home. Don't get me wrong, and spec home. So they already have it built. Some of the newer communities, the things you got to watch out for: the fees that no one talks about, CDD fees, HOA fees. A lot of the communities would already have those, so that's going to play a large part in the buyer payment. So if you have those CDD fees and those HOA fees, it's going to increase the buyer's payment. So that's something you got to watch out for. So, but I believe whatever suits the first-time home buyer, I think would be ideal.
Right. So, overall, is it more expensive to build your own home?
Not really. The markets are pretty much on the same turning points. Some of the new builds are pretty much exactly what the pre-existing homes are going for. So,
What are the requirements to buy a house?
you got to have a job. You got to have the ability to repay the loan. Okay, credit plays a factor. You just make sure you have 2 years of employment history. If you're going with an FHA product, conventional, They do have multiple products. I say just go get qualified and see where you fall. If you with a good lender, they're going to put you in a direction where you need to go ahead and qualify for the loan in the short term versus renting. So I would definitely look into all of the options that you basically could qualify for. So
How young can a first-time home buyer be?
they say 18 and over. You can buy one of the first homes, but again, a lot of the 18 years, you don't have that job longevity. It all depends on your where you are at that time when you're going to purchase. So if you have your employment for 2 years or not. Um, so there's many variables that go into a loan.
Right. Could you imagine buying a house at 18?
No, that would have been great if I would have bought it when I was 18. It must be worth a lot of money right now.
Yeah, right? Is it better to buy or rent a house?
I would say buy, because your amount of money that you're going to pay in rent is pretty much your mortgage payment. So you're either going to pay someone else's mortgage or you're going to have your own. It's up to you. So I would always prefer to buy than rent.
And how do you get the best price when buying a house?
It's usually, again, it's all in your negotiation taxes, which your agent will go ahead and negotiate for you. It depends on your market condition. Like we were in a market where we were getting 30 grand over list price. Those are not great buys to me. I would not want anyone to pay over market value for a home because it's just not a good buy. Not that FHA first-time home buyers would ever do that because they're only capped at a certain thing. They won't allow certain things, overage, unless you do pay for it and loan officer says, oh, okay, this would work. So those are things that you would have to address as you go through each property.
Is it a long process to buy your first home?
No, you could actually, from contract to close, we can get them done within 20 days,
Really, that fast?
Yep.
Now, what if someone can't afford to buy a house?
Then they should really be advised when their loan officer. If they can't afford to buy a house, they should really be set up on a plan. If that's their future goal, they want to be able to obtain the home, they need to get with a financial advisor to go ahead and make sure they can budget properly and then look at their expenses and to see what they can qualify for in the future. But I wouldn't put anybody in a position to where they basically just at their wits' end, and if they're at that high, if they can make it, so be it. I mean, it's their decision ultimately. But again, you as an agent or you as a professional should really advise your clients to make sure they're doing the right thing because foreclosure is a bad thing. You don't ever want to try to get into foreclosure status.
So overall, buying your first home really isn't that complicated.
It's really not at all. If you're renting for years, you're just throwing all that money away. So, I would definitely get qualified and then see what you can purchase in the future.
All right, we answered the most topped questions about first-time home buyers, and you heard it, that first-time home buyers aren't scared. Thank you so much, John.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.